So the title of our workshop, which is not going to be a presentation, the workshop is Rebuilding Japan in the Aftermath of the Earthquake and Tsunami. Allow me to show a few visual images about what followed during the first 10 days of this disaster. Simply a few photos. All these communities which are hit by the tsunami are Asian communities. Self-defense force, temporary shelter, like school gyms, temporary bath, coffins, and people paying tribute to those who perished. Let me basically lay out what I want to do together with you today. Just a couple of sentences about the background of why I invited you to this community discussion. First and foremost, I did a field work in northern part of Japan called the Iwate Prefecture about a month ago. And I was able to go to three of the hardest hit areas, towns or cities of Iwate Prefecture. It's an area called Rikuzen Takata and Kamaishi and Ozuchi. I get back to these places in a moment. The international image 7 months after this disaster is Fukushima, Fukushima, and Fukushima, with the nuclear issue being so influential, capturing so much of attention nationwide as well as internationally. Many of the disaster-struck areas which have little to do with the nuclear disaster are being forgotten 7 months into the post-disaster. And that disaster that is kept intact is as serious as the nuclear reactor question. And I thought there is a value of reviving that point, for it's going to be many years, if not decades, of reconstruction to come. And I also want to emphasize that because it is already 7 to 8 months after disaster, many people don't really see BBC or CNN news about Japan in terms of the disaster. And yes, the situation is as dire as ever, with the winter coming, which is the coldest winter you could ever imagine in Japan, in northern part. So it is that broader background that actually inspired me to do a little bit of a community event. And I have 3 concrete objectives I want to achieve. Number 1, how many of you have either lived or visited Japan? Okay. How many of you are planning to go to Japan or want to go to Japan? And that could include virtually everybody. So those of you who choose to work in Japan or who continue to be engaged in Japan, either as language teachers in whatever capacity, this is equivalent to September 11th. It is very important to know something about March 11th in a Japanese context. Everything is influenced or even defined by March 11th as of today in Japan, without the slightest exaggeration, including the nuclear question. The second reason why objective I want to achieve together with you has to do with a question: how many of you have worked in disaster-struck areas, natural disasters? Have lived or worked? Right? How many of you plan to work in disaster-struck areas in terms of your future aspirations? Yeah. Okay. There are so many lessons to be learned from the Japanese case. And prior to going to the field, I was actually working in disaster-struck area of Pakistan. And then I was struck by the disaster in my home country that really shocked me. But I was really struck by so many similarities, as well as differences between the Pakistan's floods and the Japanese tsunami and earthquake. So I'm hoping that even if you choose not to work in Japan, you may learn some lessons. And the third, an equally important objective. As I've held a number of community meetings in northern part of Japan, I was told numerous times that the largest fear that people have in those communities is that they are going to be forgotten. Immediately after the disaster, so many charity organizations, so many donations. I think some of you might have donated. But now, 7 months afterwards, with the competing world news elsewhere, from Sudan to Somalia to elsewhere, everywhere, Japan, especially the disaster-struck areas, being forgotten. But the reconstruction, which may take years, is simply static. At the very least, they are not necessarily seeking massive amount of material support. And after all, this is Japan. Yes, resource scarcity is there, but it is more of the fact that people still remember them, people care about them. And I was told that gives them tremendous strength. For those communities with resilience have the motivation to demonstrate to the society that they can perhaps contribute to inspiring other people who are in some challenging circumstances. So I made a sacred promise to the community members that when I return to the US, I'll do a series of sessions. So by virtue of holding this session, I'm keeping my promise. It would be nice if you could be part of my aspiration to keep the promise. And I witness portion of their challenges as well as resilience that hopefully inspires you. Let me just end with one final story that has to be beyond measure. In this town of, this ties into the question of the strength that comes out of a disaster like this. The mayor of the city, he's a remarkable person, Mr. Toba Futoshi. And I had a pleasure of meeting with this gentleman, as young as myself. He became a mayor several weeks prior to the disaster. And when the disaster struck, his wife was at home. He's got 2 small children. And it so happened that, I think you saw in the first video, short video, YouTube video, the city council being actually destroyed. And that's the city council in which he worked, actually. And nobody imagined that 30-meter wave was going to come, but it came. And then many people who happened to be in the building died. He led the entire people, together with other, of course, council members, really to a rescue. And they climbed to the top floor. As they went to the top floor, they had to eyewitness loved ones being washed away. And the wave actually came, and people who are clinging to floating objects were now receding back into the ocean. So they got to eyewitness the loved ones going like this and going back to the ocean. And a short while before the tsunami came, he actually called his wife with a cell phone, basically telling his wife that I've been so preoccupied with the public work because since I became a mayor. So let's go out for a yakiniku barbecue tonight. And afterwards, the tsunami came, and the earthquake and the tsunami came. And he was agonized over whether or not he should pick up the phone and call his wife and say that I had an alarm about the tsunami coming, so you should leave the house, run to the mountains for rescue. Or he should devote every single second, minute of his public time to save his citizens. Now you may think that that's not so much of a competition of time, but in an extreme crisis situation, the question really becomes whether you really cater for the needs of the public goods. You think of your family. He took a decision to serve his community. So as a result of it, partly as a result of it, he thinks that his wife died. Days after the disaster, he discovered his wife actually somewhere in the street, already dead. And he couldn't even tell his children that their mother had been dead. But once the body was recovered, he actually took his children in a car and took them to the funeral place. Therefore, the first time that kids actually saw the mom's photo, and they got devastated and traumatized, crying for days. But despite all of that, he's taking tremendous leadership in the city, to the extent that I think the whole town I'm aware of really admire him, because he has such a disciplined sense of leadership to serve the people. And so self-defense force people respect him, even national parliamentarians respect him. And he doesn't try to take credit. He's not even trying to share his family history story, because it kind of highlights the mayor's personal heroic story of some sort. But urged by some other people, he wrote the book. That's why I read the book. I shed tears many times reading the book before I met with the mayor. There are many people like that, and the genuine leaders emerged as a result of it, who really transcend petty personal ego interests. So my hope is that despite so many people who died, some of the real strength of the communities and the nation would emerge, maybe with the support of the international community. So with this said, I thank you very much for your active participation and long attention. Thank you.